Hey, this is Miss Clark with Topic 6 of the Algebra Review Unit. This is solving by quadratic formula. Alright, so if we look down sort of at the bottom of our screen here, I have example 1, which is 2x squared plus 3x minus 6 is equal to 0. And what I want to do here is I want to solve this equation. But what happens is if I try to factor this out, I've got 2x in my front and I've got x over here, there's no combination of 3 and 2 or 6 and 1 that's going to give me a middle coefficient of 3x. So this equation isn't factorable. And we don't have if we want to solve an equation and it's not factorable, then we're going to use the quadratic formula. In this formula, we're going to plug in our coefficients of our quadratic equation, and it's going to give us the roots of our function. Because this still has roots, it still is factorable, they're just the factors and the roots are not whole numbers. So up here I have a sort of a generic quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And that's what's going to give us the values in our equation for our quadratic formula. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so that b and that a and that c are going to correspond with the coefficient in front of my x squared, the coefficient in front of my x, and then my constant number. And I'm just going to practice plugging these into my quadratic formula and then simplifying as much as I can to get to an answer. So if we go to example 1, I just want to plug my a coefficient, my b coefficient, and then my c coefficient into the formula. You can see I've already sort of highlighted my a coefficient is just my front one in front of my x squared, so that's going to be the number 2. My b coefficient is going to be in front of my x, which is the number 3. And then my c is my constant at the end, and that's going to be minus 6. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can look at my formula and plug in at the same time. So I'm going to start with negative b, and that's going to be negative 3 because my b coefficient is 3, and then this is going to be plus or minus the square root of b squared. So this is going to be 3 squared minus 4 times a times c. So my a is 2, my c is negative 6, and this is all over 2 times my a, and again my a is 2. So you can see I'm just taking my coefficients from my equation and plugging it into the formula, and then I'm just going to simplify this down using order of operations. So I'm going to do my square first, and I'm going to simplify everything inside the square root before I try to take anything out if I can. And so I'm going to have minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared is 9 minus 4 times 2 times negative 6 all over 2 times 2. Now I'm going to do those multiplication steps, and I'm going to get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 2. So this is negative 4 times 2 times negative 6. I have 2 negatives, so this is going to become a positive. 4 times 2 is 8 times 6 is 48, so this is going to be 9 plus 48. And then 2 times 2 on the bottom is 4. And then I'm going to add those numbers inside of my radical, so this is going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 57 all over 4. And that's going to be equal to x. And if we look at the number 57, there are no squares that come out of 57, so this isn't going to reduce at all, and so this is going to be my answer. And this is going to be my exact answer. If you notice in the homework, it will ask for your exact answer, and then it will also ask for your decimal answer, and so I'm going to plug this into a calculator to get my decimal answer. So this is my exact answer. We call it the exact because we didn't have to do any sort of rounding. This is just, even though it's not a number per se, well, it is a number, but even though it doesn't look like just one number because we've got a combination of things happening, it's still my exact answer because I didn't have to round. So I'm just going to plug this into a calculator. I'm only going to do this for the first one because it's just calculator work. But how I'm going to do this is I'm going to have to do this once for my positive and then once for my negative option. And so in my calculator I'm going to do parentheses, -3 plus the square root of 57, parentheses divided by 4. And I'm going to do the parentheses because if I didn't, it would take the 57 and it would divide it by 4 first, and then it would deal with the -3. But I want to combine these two first since they're grouped on top of the division bar, and then I want to divide by 4. And so when I plug that in my calculator, I'm going to get -3 plus square root of 57 divided by 4, and I get this is equal to, 1.14, and then I'm going to do it again for my minus the square root of 57 again, because this is plus or minus divided by 4. So then I'm going to go back. I'm going to switch that to minus now, and I'm going to get -2.64. And these are going to be my rounded answers. So my second option is going to be x equals 1.14, comma, -2.64. So again, this is my rounded decimal answer, this is my exact answer. And for the rest of the problems, again, since this is just calculator work, I'm only going to find my exact answers. So going down to example 2 again, I'm just going to plug and chug into our equation. The only difference here is that I don't have a number in front of my x squared, so this is just a reminder that if I have just an x squared with no number in front of it, I can assume my coefficient here is 1. And so I have my a is 1, my b is +4, and my c is -7. And so when I go to plug this into my equation, I'm going to have -4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, where my a is 1 and my c is -7, and then that's going to be all over 2 times 1. Again, I'm just going to simplify this down as much as I can. I'm going to do a few steps at once here since nothing is being combined just for the sake of time, and I'm going to square this, and I'm going to multiply this, and I'm going to multiply this. So I'm going to get -4 plus or minus the square root of 16. And this again is a negative times a negative, so we get a positive. And we have 4 times 7 is 28, so this is going to be 16 plus 28 inside of my square root all over 2. So when I go to reduce this, this is going to be a little bit different because when I combine my 16 and my 28, I get 44. And unlike 57, 44 does have square factors that I can pull out of it. Specifically, 44 is 4 times 11, so 4 is my square inside. So this becomes 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 11, because that's the same thing as 44. And now I can take the square root of my 4 and pull it outside of my radical. So this is going to be 4 plus or minus, my square root of 4 is 2, so this is going to be 2 the square root of 11 over 2. And then I'm almost done, but all of my terms here are even, so my 4, my 2 root 11, and my 2 is even, so I can reduce this down more. I can divide the 2 out of the whole top, and I get this is 2 plus or minus the square root of 11. And then I would just plug that into the calculator for my decimal answer. Okay, so coming to example 3. Now this one's a little bit different because I don't have my quadratic equation on just one side, so that's what I want to do, because I always want to have it in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, or we could also have it as 0 is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Either way, I just want to move all of my terms to one side. And so I'm going to move this 2x over to the left by subtracting 2x. And I'm going to put it sort of right smack dab in the middle, in between my x squared and my 9, just because I want this, again, in that form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And so this is going to go to 0 on the right, and I get 3x squared minus 2x minus 9 is equal to 0, where 3 is my a, negative 2 is my b, and my c is negative 9. Well, that's not a very good color combo, is it? This is negative 9. So then I'm going to plug that into my formula again. So I'm going to do negative b. So this is going to be negative 2, which is just positive 2. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 2 squared, negative, sorry, I wrote 2 to the 4th. This is negative 2 squared minus 4 times my a times my c. My a is 3, my c is 9, negative 9, sorry about that. And then this is all over 2a, so this is all over 2 times that 3 again. And this is going to simplify. Negative 2 squared. Negative times a negative is a positive, so this is 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. And then 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 9 is 108, and this is a negative times a negative again, so this is plus 108 all over 6. So then when I combine my stuff on the inside, I have 2 plus or minus square root of 112 over 6. Now, 112 is one of those ones that you might want to do a factor tree for, because it's not super obvious what the largest square is that I can pull out, but I happen to know that 112 is really 16 times 7. And I shouldn't do an x there because I don't want to confuse it. 16 times 7 all over 6. And since 16 is a square, I can pull this beautiful, lovely out of my radical, and I get 2 plus or minus, the square root of 16 is 4, so this is going to be 4 root 7 all over 6. And I have all even terms everywhere, so I can take a 2 out of the top and a 2 out of the bottom, so this is reduces down to 1 plus or minus 2 root 7 over 3.